Well, we finally have an answer to the age-old question. What would happen if Gen Z were to lose phone service for over 24 hours? Murder is what would happen. Bloody, bloody murder, baby. No cap. That's right. We're talking about the Gen Z documentary. I mean fictional young adult murder mystery, comedy, thriller, horror, slasher, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Directed by Halina Reijn and distributed by our favorite reliable indie film studio, A24. And holy Hector, does this genre-bending film slap. The film is pretty straightforward. A girl named Sophie brings her new girlfriend B to a friend's mansion party as a way to ride out a hurricane. As the night continues and everyone gets progressively more intoxicated, I know how that is, they decide to play a game called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Think of party games like Mafia or Among Us, where people have to find the killer. Now put that game into a world of Mean Girls, but add murder. Like real murder. Starts to sound pretty sus, if you ask me. After the death of one of their friends, they start turning on each other and bringing up old grievances. Turns out a lot can go unsaid until your smartphones stop working and you're forced to communicate face to face. Spoiler warning for those people who would like the murder mystery to remain a mystery. Let's take a deep dive into 20 or so things you might have missed in Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I'm Joey C. Let's go. The director, Halina Reijn, has mentioned in interviews that she considers the film a combination of Mean Girls and Lord of the Flies, with the latter drawing some obvious comparisons. Where Lord of the Flies shows a glimpse of violence that could ensue if a group of boys were deserted on a remote island, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies gives us a hilarious, albeit dark satire showing what would happen if a group of today's generation were left on their own devices, without their devices. Plus, David's sword totally gives off a conch vibe, as it becomes a source of envy and power after David watches Greg slice open a champagne bottle with it, and it ultimately has a very important role in the film's finale.
More on that later.
Right away, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies strikes many similarities with other murder mystery films that have come before it. The first obvious link would be to the 1985 American cult classic, Clue. God, I love Tim Curry. Which is also set in a mansion where a group of people are trying to figure out who has been taking the lives of those around them. B, played by Maria Bakalova, uses a kettlebell to kill Greg, who's played by Lee Pace. And in the updated version of Clue, you can use a dumbbell as a weapon. Now, is that intentional? I have no idea, but hey, let us speculate in peace, would ya? After the game has started, one of the girl's history as an actress is brought up as a way to cast doubt on her sincerity while playing the game. That girl is Emma, played with fantastic subtlety by Chase Sue Wonders, who is dating Pete Davidson's David. That's a mouthful. But soon, someone else blurts out, not to be mean, but she wasn't that good in Hedda Gabler. That reference to Hedda Gabler got us thinking, why was a Norwegian play that's over 100 years old being name-dropped in a Gen Z dark comedy? Well, one could start with the fact that director Halina Reijn began her career as an actress first, and mentioned in interviews that she played Hedda Gabler for years while she pursued a career in theater in the Netherlands. But upon a deeper dive, the play itself is actually about a famous daughter who marries a man out of desperation, but ultimately finds life with him to be dull and tedious. This runs parallel to Emma's story in Bodies, 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 whose relationship with Pete Davidson's character gets called out by the others as a fraud. When first meeting Maria Bakalova's B character, Emma, in an attempt to break the tension, blurts out to her that Dr. Zhivago is one of her favorite films. The film Dr. Zhivago is based off of a novel of the same name, which is about the Russian Revolution and communism. And, sorry, I'm not about to go on a deep dive into an old novel right now. Apologies to all the Zhivago heads watching this. All you need to know is that one of its main themes center around the idea that people have begun to lose their ability to form their own viewpoints. That premise is clearly an issue in this film, as it seems that none of the characters can think logically throughout the night. They pretty much just blame each other over and over again until there are only a few friends left standing. This idea of group dynamics actually plays a pivotal role in how the story unfolds. This film explores how Gen Z, and let's face it, pretty much every generation at this point, communicates by mostly using their phones. When Sophie first gets to the mansion, she's called out for, quote, ghosting the group chat. Which, I'm sorry, but if I get messaged by 2 or more people at a time, I immediately check out. I can't be the only one, can I? Anyways, this is the first sign that there are trust issues within the group, and is the first domino to fall in a long line of dominoes as the group begins to realize they might not really know each other as well as they thought. And the more they distrust each other, the more their group dynamic becomes a house of cards. Speaking of the group, let's discuss this stellar cast, shall we? First up, Amandla Stenberg. Amandla Stenberg plays Sophie, arguably the core member of the group, who has just recently returned from rehab with her new girlfriend, only to embark on a hellish journey of games and murder. I mean, damn! Rue from the Hunger Games really can't catch a break. Originally, Stenberg was toying between the choice of playing Sophie or B, since she was more used to playing a shy and introverted role in the past. Stenberg opted instead to play a more challenging role of Sophie, whereas the role of B went to Maria Bakalova, and it seems like Stenberg's role will only get more and more varied, since she was tapped to play the lead role in the up-and-coming Star Wars Disney Plus series, Acolyte. But back to Maria Bakalova. Ah yes, the prodigal Borat daughter has returned to the silver screen, this time in a role no one could have seen coming. Maria plays B, Sophie's quiet girlfriend who is thrust into a world of wealthy, drug-riddled partygoers. Director Halina Reijn says that she became obsessed with Maria's performance in Borat 2 and had to get her onto this project, which makes sense. Who wasn't immediately obsessed with this Bulgarian talent? I mean, she was nominated for an Oscar for bravely committing to some of the most lewd scenes we have ever seen in a film, so by God, that makes sense. And boy, does Maria shine in this film as well, and we're all very excited to see that she's starring in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 as Cosmo the Space Dog. We all saw that coming, right? Speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, holy hell, Lee freaking Pace, man! This guy can do anything. He can be an intimidating alien villain in Guardians of the Galaxy one moment, and a free-loving chakra-healing hippie the next. Lee Pace plays Greg, the boyfriend of Alice, who she met on Tinder. Large age gap aside, they are quite the cute couple, and Lee is responsible for one of the most hilarious and chaotic scenes in the whole movie. Seriously, this guy is such a joy to watch in this role. Hollywood, if you're listening, which we all know you always are, give this guy more comedies. While we're talking about comedy, let's talk about Pete Davidson. Perfect Petey took a much-needed break from dating A-list celebrities to gracing us with his acting talents as Sophie's jaded best friend, David. And oh man, what a surprise he is. Seriously, whoever had doubts about Pete Davidson's acting abilities, don't worry. Yeah, some would say he didn't show the most range during his stint on SNL, but damn is he a delight to watch on screen. Perfectly typecasted as the douchey party bro, Pete's comedic timing in every scene is just chef's kiss. Director of photography Jasper Wolf even said that he was mesmerized by Pete Davidson in the camera test. First he went for Kim K. Now he's targeting directors of photography. Hey Pete, listen, we here at ScreenRant refuse to bow to your charm. You won't take us alive, baby! I'm sorry, I got a little caught up there. Let's talk the director, shall we? This is only Halina's second feature film, and it's her first film that was made for American audiences. Pretty crazy, right? It feels like a story built by someone super familiar with American culture. Well, that is no coincidence, since she stated in multiple interviews that she made sure to collab with her actors on everything, from the music all the way to the way they interacted on their phones. She also stated that she wants to keep working with A24 and do an erotic thriller, which, if you've seen Bodies, 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 sure doesn't seem like a far cry from the tone she's comfortable working in. Halina Reijn asked her actors to rehearse their lines over and over, as if they were doing a play. This comes as no surprise, as Reign's background is in theater, but it really seems to have worked out in her favor here. The scenes feel natural and loose and wild, partially because Reijn asked them to watch the film Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which was meant to inspire them to be their most raw and unfiltered selves. Reijn apparently told the actors, "Don't be afraid to be trashy. Bring your low culture." And boy, it worked. These girls are vicious. Fantastic actors, but vicious. Reijn made sure the masters were all done in long takes. Since she asked the actors to know their lines like a play, she had them act through entire scenes without stopping. She credits this for allowing for more nuanced choices and natural chemistry between the actors. And let me tell you, that worked, baby. If you were to tell me that this group of actors were best friends in real life, I'd have no choice but to believe you. Since the actors got to know their characters and lines so well, this created a wonderful environment for improv. And the director even said that she let takes go on for super long. And we can't discuss improv in this movie without commending the insanely talented Rachel Sennott. Sennott plays Alice, a fun but instigating character who isn't afraid of telegraphing her emotions via standard Gen Z phrases. It turns out the line where she says, "You're silencing me," which is even played in the trailer, was completely improv'd by Alice. And it's not the only moment that Alice had us in stitches from her improv. Towards the climax of the film, she blurts out, "I have body dysmorphia." That was never in the script, but once she said it, director Reijn had to have it in the film, as it immediately seemed like an iconic line. In pretty much every interview, the cast and crew has called the film a satire of Gen Z, when in reality, it's really a satire of all of us and our dependency on our phones. The film opens with a shot of Sophie and B in the throes of their romance. They each profess their love, and then, what's the next shot? The two of them sitting in their car texting on their phones. It would be funny if it weren't so true. At the climax of the film, B's character has to choose between going after a gun or a phone that's filled with potentially adulterous texts between Sophie and Jordan, a girl she used to date. And what does she choose? The phone. Yes, even in a life or death situation, apparently Gen Z will choose drama over survival. Our reliance on technology as a theme sits front and center through so much of the film. One could argue that all of this goes down because they lost their Wi-Fi reception. In fact, the last line of the film is Bakalova's character saying, "I got Wi-Fi reception," after we as the audience hear our notifications begin to arrive. But on a technical level, director Reijn utilizes our smartphone dependencies as a filmmaking tool. 80% of this film takes place in the dark. So how did they decide to light the actors on screen? With phones, of course. Have you not been paying attention to this whole video? I mean, it just makes sense that the actors would light each other with the flashlights on their phone. Director Halina Reijn said that lighting a blackout hurricane party was a key challenge. But having the actors be responsible for said lighting by using their phones, the director said she was able to make a statement about technology and have a sensible way to light the actors. Finding the perfect house for the murderous game was also a big challenge. The director said that she and the DP went around to various locations before landing the mansion used in the film. What they ended up choosing was a dilapidated house in Chappaqua, an affluent area in the town of Newcastle, which is a very wealthy city in upstate New York. They eventually had to fix it up a great deal to get it camera ready. Obviously, this was the perfect backdrop for the film about young wealthy kids with too much time on their hands. Director Halina Reijn has said in interviews that she wanted a house that, quote, Trump would love. To her, it felt like the, quote, broken American dream, which was perfect for the story she was trying to tell. According to the cast and director, everyone on set felt like they were in a very collaborative environment. This was no accident, as the director frequently asked the cast for their insight on Gen Z behavior and even music choices. In fact, the song that was used for the main party scene was actually chosen by the actors themselves. The director gave her actors free rein on choosing the song that they wanted to party to the most. They ended up choosing Azealia Banks' 212, a choice that ultimately proved the right one, as it seems to fit the vibe of the cast to a T. The director also asked the cast to behave as they would normally with their phones and with each other, because she wanted it to be as authentically Gen Z as possible. And if you wanted to go Gen Z, all you'd have to do is play Fortnite and eat a Tide Pod or something. Director Halina Reijn has stated that she wanted the music to be emotionless because she didn't want it to give too much away. She wanted the audience to view the actors as, quote, animals that are slowly starting to eat each other. We are just witnesses to their story, and we shouldn't be led in any particular direction. Reijn said that she purposefully made the music drive the story forward, but didn't let the characters reflect. Because once they started to reflect, they start to think rationally. And we can't have that in any slasher film. In order to achieve this emotionally neutral techno vibe, Reijn enlisted the help of a composer by the name of Disasterpiece, who you probably aren't familiar with by name, but might know his work as the composer of the slasher horror indie film It Follows. Before production started, the script initially had an actual killer, but once they workshopped the story to have no real villain, director Halina Reijn said that that's when the whole point of the film finally came together. And this played into the question, are we animals? Or are we civilized human beings? One thing's for sure, odds are no one will guess who the killer is upon the first viewing, because ultimately there was no killer. Turns out it was just David trying to look as cool as Greg did when he opened the champagne bottle with the family sword. But all he ended up doing was giving himself a deadly razor cut to the jugular, and all of that for a TikTok. So, you hear that, kids? Just stay off TikTok. Unless, of course, it's the official TikTok of ScreenRant. In that case, stay as long as you'd like. But there you have it. Halina Reijn mentioned that she wanted one of the themes to be the dangers of toxic masculinity. And man, does that lesson ring clear. Ladies and gentlemen, thems and theys, you made it to the end of the video. What did you think of Bodies, Bodies, Bodies? Did we notice anything that you didn't? If so, let us know in the comments below. And as always, everybody, thanks for watching.